ግማሽ ሰዓት.
Hello and welcome to ግማሽ ሰዓት. My name is Yadego Absalom and today I'm honored to have an exclusive sit down with one of the oldest monarchies in Ethiopia. Joining me later on in the show is Prince Iyoel Mekonnen, the great-grandson of His Imperial Majesty Haile Selassie I, alongside his gracious wife, Ariana Mekonnen.
Ethiopia, a land steeped in regal history and home to kings and queens for millennia, witnessed a dramatic shift in 1974.
The esteemed Emperor Haile Selassie I was dethroned by the Derg, a Marxist-Leninist military junta. The subsequent assassination of the emperor on August 27, 1975, remains a topic of great controversy and mystery.
Amidst these turbulent times, the royal family narrowly escaped a fate that could have mirrored the tragic end of the emperor himself.
Today, I am privileged to sit down with Prince Iyoel and his wife Ariana Mekonnen at the historic Wabe Shebelle Hotel, a landmark that symbolizes the enduring legacy of Ethiopia's royal heritage. Join me as I delve deeper into their remarkable story of survival, legacy, and hope. How are you?
Hello.
Thank you so much for having us at Wabe Shebelle Hotel. Okay, let's get mic'd up.
Yeah.
Perfect. I kind of got straight into it.
Yeah. Good? All right.
So, thank you so much for having us at this historical hotel, Wabe Shebelle. It's one of the first modern hotels in Ethiopia. It's such a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much. Please introduce yourself to our audience, to people that might not know you.
I'm Prince Iyoel Mekonnen. I'm the great-grandson of Emperor Haile Selassie. And I live in the United States, in Los Angeles, where I practice as an attorney. But I'm also the founder and actually co-founder, of Wax and Gold, which is a media and entertainment company focused on film and TV projects.
And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen, Prince Iyoel Mekonnen. Throughout our conversation, I was struck by his grounded nature, natural charm, and approachable demeanor. Reflective of his warm hospitality, Prince Iyoel extended a personal welcome to me at the doors of the Wabe Shebelle Hotel, a cherished family establishment. His actions speak volumes about his character and the graciousness that defines his approach to both life and leadership.
And I'm Ariana Mekonnen. Of course, I'm Prince Iyoel's wife. I'm also a writer, a curator, and a philanthropist, and also, of course, working with Wax and Gold Media.
Ariana is an embodiment of support and grace. Ariana Mekonnen impressed me with her kindness, generosity, and remarkable intelligence. Radiating the elegance of royalty, she brings a unique blend of passion and curiosity for Ethiopian culture. Upon my arrival, Ariana joined Prince Iyoel in welcoming me. During our initial moments, we paused by a celebrated painting by Gebra Christos Desta, an iconic piece of art. As I stood admiring this extraordinary piece of art, my thoughts naturally drifted towards Prince Iyoel's unique upbringing. I found myself pondering the realities of growing up as a young prince in exile. The juxtaposition of royal lineage against the backdrop of banishment presents a compelling narrative, one that I was definitely eager to explore further with Prince Iyoel.
Well, I have to say I had many phases in my life because initially when I was born, the revolution had happened in Ethiopia and my family was outside the country. So we were actually not able to come back as the royal family had been detained, imprisoned, mistreated, and even some were killed. And so we could not come back home. And so we were exiled in Europe. And so during that phase, I have to say that even though I was told about my history, I was very young and we were really told to keep a low profile because of everything that had happened. My family just wanted to kind of start back and be able to continue in the West. But eventually, when things settled in Ethiopia, we eventually had a chance to come back and I had the opportunity to reconnect with the homeland, get to know my people and learn the language and live here. And so at that point is I feel when the memory and the resurgence kind of weighed more on me now, knowing the long history that we have, 1,000-year-old, thousands of years history. Now I feel it's a responsibility almost, and carrying this legacy so that it's not forgotten. I know that the emperor has a very divisive or divided memory, and I'm not asking people to love him or hate him. Some people have their own opinions, but all I want is at least that we keep talking about it and that we do not forget it. So that's the responsibility I feel with this legacy.
Prince Yoel's response to my inquiry was profoundly insightful and delivered with impeccable manners. His perspective was balanced and nuanced, reflecting a deep understanding of the complexities surrounding his late grandfather's reign. Indeed, Emperor Haile Selassie I evoked polarized views. Some criticized the monarchy for being disconnected from the people's needs, while others staunchly defended it, citing the emperor's efforts to uplift Ethiopia. What stood out in Prince Yoel's acknowledgement was his recognition and understanding of these divergent viewpoints. This ability to see beyond one's personal narrative is indicative of true forward thinking, a hallmark of grace, comprehensive education, and genuine compassion. In Prince Yoel, I saw the qualities of a leader who not only respects the past, but also embraces a multifaceted approach to understanding history and its impacts. So why was it so important for us to remember our past?
It's such a weighty history that we have, and given the situation, it could be very easy to let it slip away. But I find that it's important for our people and the world to know this history.
It is true. We may not have to all agree on the past, but we must respect it, teach the good that was done, debate about the bad, heal, and then move forward gracefully, understanding both perspectives. Otherwise, we are truly doomed to repeat the same dark history over and over again. Thoroughly impressed by his insightful perspective and progressive mindset, I found myself increasingly curious about the foundations of Prince Yoel's upbringing. It led me to wonder, where was this young prince raised, and what educational paths did he pursue? Understanding the environments and experience that shaped him could ultimately offer valuable insights into the man he is today.
So I grew up mostly in Geneva, Switzerland. I was born in Rome, Italy, actually, before that. But we had to leave Italy because at the time there were attempts on my father's life, actually. And so we had to move, and there were operatives from the Derg that were sent to silence him because he was very vocal. You see, my father, he would go on TV in Europe and France and in the UK to speak about the tragedy that were befalling the Ethiopian people during the revolution. And so he was very outspoken and, made some enemies, I suppose, that wanted to take him out and silence him. So anyway, all that is to say, we moved eventually to Geneva. And that's where I grew up. I went to school there. I went to boarding school in the neighboring French Alps, and pretty much grew up my whole childhood there. And it wasn't until I was about 14 years old that I first came back here to Ethiopia. But most of my time I spent outside the country.
It's no surprise, then, to learn that Prince Yoel was born in Italy and raised in Switzerland, environments far removed from the typical royal upbringing. Amidst the constant threat of assassins during his formative years, it's conceivable that he developed an early understanding of diplomacy and a keen sense of survival. These experiences may have also ignited a deep-seated desire to reconcile the divisions within his homeland. As a child, innocent to the complexities of world politics, the concept of someone attempting to harm his family must have been both bewildering and deeply traumatic. Yet it is often through such profound experiences that principles and moral fortitude are forged. However, this brings us to an intriguing question. Has Prince Yoel, in his upbringing away from his ancestral homeland, become distanced from the rich royal culture of the Ethiopian monarchy? Amidst his diverse experiences in Italy and Switzerland, one wonders how deeply he's connected to the traditional customs and practices of his royal lineage.
I really appreciate and admire our showing respect to your elders. I remember I was told even very young when I had to come and say hello to my grandmother, I had to get down and kiss her knee first and then hug her. And, you know, as a child, obviously, it felt like a lot of protocol. But as I grew up, I started to appreciate it more. And I think that's what I really love about the Ethiopian culture, and especially when it's tied to our royal history, that we have this respect and this very prideful way of carrying ourselves.
This curiosity led me to another important question. In a setting as diverse as America, how does Prince Yoel maintain the rich cultural heritage of his royal Ethiopian lineage? Moreover, being married to an American woman adds another layer to this cultural dynamic. It's intriguing to consider how Prince Yoel balances these varied influences while preserving the traditions and values of his ancestral roots.
It's not always easy. Certainly living in this modern life and having been really cut off from our homeland all this time and just now reconnecting with it, I feel like is a question that not just myself, but a lot of my cousins ponder over of my generation about how to reconcile with this history and how to move forward today. And I think that the best way I found is to actually combine the two, my legacy and my personal aspirations. And that's why now one of my big motivations and missions is to tell the story of my great-grandfather, tell stories about Ethiopia and our people, so that the generations after and the next will still have access to these stories. So I feel like that's how I can be in service to this legacy and continuing it forward.
Do you think there's been a fair sort of telling of the emperor?
I think there's definitely more that can be said. Obviously, as I was saying, I'm not here to just whitewash a history. If people have had issues with this history, let's talk about it. There's some good, there's some bad, but that's how a people move forward, is if you have the lessons from your history, you can continue what was good and then get rid of what was bad. In terms of the emperor, I do think that his portrayal has been really slated towards negative. There's been a big effort over the years to tarnish his legacy and really just focus on all of the negative things that have happened. But I sincerely believe objectively that he has actually provided many great things for the country. He really loved the country. And so that's why I want to just make sure that there's a fair treatment of him. And then we can debate, you know, whether you love him or hate him or disagree, criticize. That's what strong society does, is you deal with your past and see how you can move forward in a better way.
In my own upbringing, I've encountered a spectrum of opinions about the late Emperor Haile Selassie's reign, ranging from high praise to critical viewpoints. While my role here isn't to adjudicate these perspectives, it's evident that the emperor's reign had a significant impact. His ambition to modernize Ethiopia, while deeply rooted in the nation's rich cultural and religious heritage, inevitably led to some social upheavals. Objectively speaking, the emperor's efforts towards modernization had lasting effects. Today, many of Ethiopia's major educational institutions, healthcare facilities, and landmark hotels stand as a testament to the developments initiated during his reign. These enduring structures not only symbolize the emperor's vision but also reflect the complex layers of Ethiopia's journey through modernization. You're watching ግማሽ ሰዓት. We'll be right back right after this short commercial break.
ህልምን በሳይንሳዊ መንገድ ለመፍታት በሞከረው በሲግመንድ ፍሮይድ አፈታት ብዙዎች ህልምን ሊያዩት ይሞክራሉ።
ይህን ህልም 10 ዓመቴ እያለሁ ነበር ያየሁት።
ብዙ ነገሯ በጣም ውብ ነውና ብዙ ወንድ ተማሪዎች እንወዳት ነበረ።
እንዴት ይያለ ሰነቀ ሲያድግ ራሱ በሙሉ የሚሆን ልጅ ነው።
ክቡራንና ክቡራት ቀጥታ ወደ ህልመኞቹ ዓለም እንግባ። ግማሽ ሰዓት
On April 2, 1930, Ras Teferi Makonnen ascended to the throne as Emperor Haile Selassie. His extensive reign marked him as a formidable international figure and a symbol of an independent, resilient Africa. The legacy of Selassie is multifaceted. While some revere him as a benevolent ruler who valiantly resisted Italian colonization, others elevate him to divine status, particularly within the Rastafarian movement. And yet, there are also those who perceive him as a tyrant. This spectrum of views underscores the complexity of his reign and the diverse impact he had on people both within and beyond Ethiopia. Emperor Haile Selassie I holds the distinction of being the last monarch of Ethiopia's Solomonic dynasty, a lineage steeped in legend and history, tracing its roots back to the biblical era of King Solomon of Israel and the Queen of Sheba. Believed to have lived around the 10th century BCE, Ethiopia, under his reign, stood as a beacon of uncolonized resilience in Africa, a unique status that added to the country's rich history. As nations across Africa embarked on their paths to independence in the 20th century, Selassie emerged as a formidable figure on the international stage. His reign was marked by significant policies, including a staunch advocacy for African unity and the historic move to abolish slavery in Ethiopia. These actions not only solidified his reputation, but also earned him a prestigious role in global diplomacy.
The Emperor of Ethiopia has come to Washington to discuss important aspects of world peace and economic progress.
This was exemplified by his high-profile presence at key international events, such as the funeral of U.S. President John F. Kennedy. Perhaps one of the most intriguing aspects of Selassie's legacy is his profound influence on the island of Jamaica. There, his birth name, Teferi, with Ras being a title of nobility, became a central figure in the Rastafarian movement. Followers of his faith regard Selassie as a divine figure, showcasing the far-reaching impact of his legacy beyond the borders of Ethiopia. While Emperor Haile Selassie I enjoyed considerable international acclaim, his reputation within Ethiopia was more complex. His tenure as leader saw the nation grappling with significant challenges, including periods of famine and prolonged conflicts. The most notable of these conflicts was over the region of Eritrea, a struggle that ultimately led to Eritrea's independence in 1993. This aspect of Selassie's reign paints a picture of a leader whose global popularity was, at times, juxtaposed with domestic strife and hardship. Many who have primarily encountered Emperor Haile Selassie I through the music of reggae legends like Bob Marley or Teddy Afro may perceive him as a benevolent, fatherly figure and a global champion for Black people.
Is finally and permanently.
However, this image, which some say has been romanticized, is often met with opposing views. Indeed, the narrative surrounding Selassie's reign is not without its complexities. While it's true that Africa as a whole has long wrestled with challenges like border conflicts, ethnic tensions, and clashes between cultural and religious beliefs, Selassie's leadership must be viewed in a broader context. What about the significant advancements he had championed? His fervent push to modernize Ethiopia, a bold move during an era where many African nations were still deeply rooted in traditional practices and beliefs, is something that is so noteworthy. Can we not find a middle ground in our understanding of Selassie's reign? Is it not possible to acknowledge his contribution to Ethiopia's progress while also recognizing the difficulties and controversies of his time in power? As emperor, he sought to modernize his country and steer it into the mainstream of African politics. He brought Ethiopia into the League of Nations and into the UN, and made Addis Ababa the center for the Organization of African Unity, now the African Union. From 1931 to 1934, Emperor Haile Selassie I embarked on transformative projects, including roads, schools, hospitals, communication systems, administration, and public services to Ethiopia. These initiatives effectively opened Ethiopia to the global economy. By 1932, Addis Ababa, the capital city, was thriving on revenues from exporting 25,000 tons of coffee annually. These revenues facilitated centralization of the government, enhancement of communications, development of a national education system modeled after Western frameworks, and modernization of urban areas. New constitutions were implemented, establishing an independent judiciary, separation of powers, attention to human rights, and a bureaucracy tasked with serving the populace. However, internal strife began to surface. Competing factions among Selassie's ministers led to governmental dysfunction and hindered bureaucratic modernization. A growing belief emerged that the country's salvation lay in the dismantling of the imperial regime. This sentiment culminated in a coup attempt in December 1960 during the emperor's absence. Continued efforts for reform in 1961, particularly in land rights, met fierce opposition. The monarchy's credibility waned amidst ongoing conflicts in Eritrea and Somalia, and domestic issues were largely overlooked. The year 1974 marked a turning point. A series of mutinies led by junior officers, with Major Mengistu Haile Mariam of Harar's 3rd Division playing a pivotal role, led to the dismantling of the monarchy. Many of Selassie's confidants, advisors, and generals were arrested or killed. It was during this upheaval that Prince Yoel's family, including his father, was forced into exile. In exile, a devastating blow came to the family with the news of the emperor's assassination in 1975. Ironically, Ariana shares a somewhat similar background, albeit with distinct differences. Her grandfather served as the mayor of Guyana during British colonial rule. Following Guyana's liberation from British control, the nation faced the monumental challenge of forging a new path forward. This pivotal moment in history echoes a similar sentiment that Ethiopians experience post-monarchy. Both nations found themselves at crossroads, embarking on journeys filled with hope, yet veiled in layers of doubt and uncertainty. It was at this point that Ariana's family moved to the United States,
So my grandfather, John Ford, was the last Lord Mayor of Georgetown, Guyana, and Georgetown is the capital. And yeah, it's kind of maybe similar in the sense that the system changed. So he was mayor under the British imperial system, and then he was leading the city during the time of independence. So it was a very eventful time in Guyanese history. And they freed themselves from the British, and then the British were out, and then they had to figure out how they would continue to manage a new nation.
Such parallels in Ariana's and Yoel's histories perhaps provide a unique perspective for both of them, mirroring the complexities and challenges that accompany significant political and social transitions. Curious about her unique experience, I asked Ariana what she cherishes most about being married to someone of Ethiopian heritage. Her response sheds light on the intertwining of cultures and the personal journey she's embarked on in this union.
The aspects of Ethiopian culture that I find most fascinating, I would say the food, the food and the music, those kind of things. And of course, the history. So, even just hearing Yoel talk, I never get tired of hearing him, talk about his history and his legacy. It's just so fascinating. It's so old, so ancient, this kind of ancient Christian tradition, so many faiths, Judaism, Islam, and Christianity all in one place. So it's just, it's kind of endlessly fascinating, the history.
Was it hard for you to adapt to this culture?
It was hard, I think, actually, honestly, in the beginning. I think every time I come to Ethiopia or do, different events with Yoel's family, I get more comfortable. But I would say, I wouldn't describe it as a challenge, but it was definitely kind of an adventure in the beginning. Getting used to some of that formality and hierarchy that he described is definitely something that was unusual for me. And then, of course, the language. Trying to navigate that and be understood and communicate myself. The formality that still exists, even though the royal family is technically not empowered, that there's still so much hierarchy and formality and just trying to you walk into a room and it's okay, what do I do first? And just trying to navigate that and figure it out.
Yeah.
Indeed, their story captured the imagination of many, making headlines with a narrative straight out of a fairy tale movie. Picture this. A stunning African-American woman meets her charming prince from Africa in a Washington, D.C. nightclub. It literally mirrors one of my favorite movies of all time, Coming to America.
Queens, no one here can know I am royalty. You must appear to be no different than the average man. I will not say a word.
Yeah, so we met in a nightclub in D.C.
Ooh, a place where you commonly find princes, right?
So yeah, we met there. Yeah. I was both in our early 20s. We were out, and we met. And then I guess a decade later, we got married, and there was a story in the New York Times.
This enchanting encounter was even featured in the New York Times, capturing hearts and minds alike. But perhaps the most delightful detail, one that adds a touch of humor and charm to their story, is Prince Yoel's pickup line. That's right, a moment that's become almost legendary for those who have read the article. If you haven't come across it yet, prepare to be amused as we hear it directly from the princess herself.
Oh, man, you're gonna make me say it?
I want her to tell us that pickup line.
It was like a drinks, a sponsored night. And me and my best friend were there, and we had these drinks in our hands. And him and his friend, they came up and he said, "You guys look like an ad for Bombay Sapphire."
Ooh, what a line.
Yeah, I know.
Play it.
It wasn't my best work.
But effective.
But it worked.
Yes. But effective.
Yes,
yeah.
effective.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we had a great night that evening.
Yeah.
Danced the night away, and the rest is history, as I say.
So your story kind of spans almost a decade,
like
you said, and you've always kept in touch. It was kind of back and forth. You were if you were going to school, you were still pursuing your education. I think you went to Harvard.
Yes,
right?
I went to grad school at Harvard, and then I lived in Paris for a year, and then UL kind of did a few things on his own. So we were kind of back and forth. I just had a few things I needed to pursue. But whenever we were back in DC, which is my hometown, we always wanted to be together. And it was, I mean, we kind of always knew that this was it. It was just a matter of when.
While Ariana was immersed in her graduate studies at Harvard, Yoel was equally dedicated to his law school education. Despite the demands of their rigorous academic pursuits, they maintained a steadfast commitment to their relationship, balancing their personal and professional priorities. They never lost sight of the bond they shared. Indeed, their reunion was nothing short of a jubilant explosion of joy. When the timing aligned perfectly, Yoel didn't hesitate to propose, setting the wheels in motion for their eagerly anticipated wedding. This power couple's union drew an impressive guest list, attracting a constellation of celebrities and notable figures. The illustrious attendees ranged from political luminaries to entertainment icons. Their wedding was not just a celebration of love, but also an exhibition of Black excellence. But crafting a legacy of Black excellence is a formidable undertaking.
I'm waiting for the night, and I don't realize that I'm falling. I still see your light, and I know you'll be mine if I'm calling. I'm calling. Some